the muddy river full of destroyed timber, a washed-out bridge. Then, for the first time, the President of the United States saw what Washingtonians have been seeing since Sunday, the raw destruction of the Mount St. Helens explosion. Up towards Spirit Lake, he saw the lines of trees destroyed, millions of board feet buried under tons of mud and ash. The cracks in the earth, the 150 square miles of barren wasteland. In Kelso, the President described what he had just seen.
I've never seen or heard of anything like this before. Somebody said it looked like a moonscape, but the moon looks like a golf course compared to what's up there. And it is a horrible-looking sight. The mountains are just completely devastated. You can't see where the ground even was formerly. The ash is several hundred feet deep. There's tremendous clouds of steam coming up. There's enormous icebergs, which is as big as a mobile home.
The President then went to Cascade Middle School in Kelso. The school is now a Red Cross center for those left homeless by the eruption. 40 slept here last night, down from 300 on Sunday.
So your house is okay?
Although the visit was short, about 10 minutes, people at the center described the President's visit as a great morale booster. The President's two-day trip is valuable in a couple of ways. For the victims of the disaster, it is a moral boost. The President of the United States cares enough about their problems to come take a first-hand look. But perhaps more importantly, the President brought with him a dozen federal relief officials, people who will be responsible for making sure that federal money gets to the people who need it. The money hasn't started to flow yet, but it's expected to start soon. With the President in Portland, I'm Aaron Brown for King 5 News.
Air Force One touched down at Spokane International Airport shortly before 1 o'clock. On board were the President, the governors of Washington and Idaho, a senator, a congressman, and other officials. The President's motorcade went only as far as the airport fire station. There, President Carter and his entourage met with state and local officials to be briefed on the problems caused by the tons of ash that have blanketed eastern Washington. Officials from the hardest-hit communities, including Ritzville, asked for federal money and help from the National Guard for the cleanup effort. The President said he would ask Congress for a special allocation without delay. Idaho Governor John Evans urged the President to declare 8 northern Idaho counties a disaster area. Carter agreed. The President also heard the first official estimate of crop losses caused by the ash, a staggering $260 million. Farmers desperately need financial help, and quickly, the President was told. But at a press conference following the meeting, the only help the President promised farmers was an extension of the deadline for the storage of carryover wheat.
There will undoubtedly be some damage to agriculture. Now those who produce milk are finding it impossible to market in some regions, of course, and the milk is having to be dumped. But we don't know any troubling aspect of the long-range effect of the ash concentration.
That may do little to ease the frustration of Columbia Basin farmers faced with a potential wipeout of hay and other crops. The President praised citizens for the way they have coped with the catastrophe.
There has been a remarkable absence of a panic and a tremendous exhibition of patriotism, cooperation, and community effort to clean up in this region. And I want to congratulate the people here for that attitude and hope it will continue. We have a real need for the local people to cooperate with the federal government and also with the state officials. And I think the private sector are all determined to correct the defects that exist in the area. As far as the demonstrators are concerned, I didn't see them. I left before it occurred. But they have a problem in that area that we're all working together to try to solve.
Mr. President, we were told there was a rock-throwing incident. Were you aware of that at all?
No, I wasn't. They told me about it afterwards.
President Carter was scheduled to arrive in Seattle at 11 o'clock tonight, and at 11 o'clock he walked out the door of Air Force One. Punctuality is not a problem in the Carter administration. He is here to speak tomorrow to the U.S. Conference of Mayors and to get a briefing on the conditions in the Mount St. Helens area. Earlier today, he was in Miami, and we had a chance to talk with him briefly about his day there. He said he was satisfied that both the public and private sector are doing everything they can to get that city back running again after the riots there last week and the week before. And as far as the demonstration earlier, he said he wasn't aware of it. The president is on his way to the Olympic Hotel, where he'll spend the night before tomorrow morning's speech. At Boeing Field, I'm Aaron Brown for King 5 News. It was the smile of a political candidate in a room full of friends. Much of Carter's strongest support comes from mayors of big, largely Democratic cities. The president was on the campaign trail. Mr. Carter defended his tight budget, which mayors fear will cost the cities dollars. He said his plan to slow inflation will work without unfairly hurting those people who need government services the most.
My program will bring down price increases and interest rates, and this will help everyone, but it's a program designed especially to help old people on fixed incomes, for the poor who must sometimes choose between a warm home and a warm meal.
Mr. Carter said the administration had created more jobs than in history, 8 million more jobs in 3 years. He said his efforts to bring private money to revitalize cities has created 400,000 new jobs and increased urban tax bases by $100 million a year. Carter told the mayors he is a friend to be appreciated.
Where there was a federal hodgepodge, there's now a good, calm, solid, routine, working relationship between the federal government and the local officials of our nation.
And in the only time he was interrupted by applause, Mr. Carter made an obvious attack on the campaign pledges of Republican Ronald Reagan.
I reject the easy promise that massive tax cuts and arbitrary rollbacks of government programs are the answer. Such facile, quick fixes should be recognized as political double talk and ideological nonsense.
The president said things are getting better. The policies are working. It may be painful for a time, but the cities and the nation are on the right track. Then he left Seattle for a trip to Nebraska and back to the White House. Aides say this was an important speech for President Carter. With a tough re-election campaign ahead, it is crucial he have support from the mayors, especially the big city mayors, and the large political organizations they control. At the Olympic Hotel, I'm Aaron Brown for King 5 News. President Carter heard of the break in the hostage crisis early this morning and immediately returned to the White House, cutting short a campaign swing through the Midwest. After all-day meetings with his national security staff, late this afternoon, the president issued this statement.
We are pursuing the matter through diplomatic channels. Any action taken by our government will be in full accordance with our laws and with our Constitution. I know that I share with the hostages, with their families, and with the people of this country the desire for a prompt return of those for whom we have waited so long. I know also that all Americans will want that return to be on a proper basis, which is worthy of the suffering and sacrifice which the hostages have endured.
President Carter chose Seattle as his last campaign stop, the last stop of this long campaign. He is still at Seattle's Boeing Field, and so is our political reporter, Aaron Brown, live.
50 years, and said the Republicans have opposed every one of them. The president also said not once in his 4-year term has the country gone to war, has an American soldier died in war. He then made a very direct pitch to John Anderson supporters. He said it is clear that the winner will be either Ronald Reagan or Mr. Carter. He appealed for Anderson voters to support him, saying they have more in common than does the president. The president now heads to Plains, Georgia after a round of handshaking here. He will vote there tomorrow and then fly back to Washington to wait the results. By this time tomorrow night, President Carter should know if the next 4 if the next few months are spent preparing to his next 4-year term, or whether it is a transition to a Republican government in this country. By this time tomorrow night, we should know. Outside at Air Force One, the president's staff is waiting to greet him after this very long campaign day that began in Washington and then included this swing west. Indeed, it has been a very long 5 days for the president. Yesterday in the Midwest, and then he returned to deal with the hostage crisis, and then flew back out here to end this 1980 presidential campaign. The presidential campaign literally now is just seconds away from ending. These are the closing moments of the longest campaign in American history. Reporting live from Boeing Field, I'm Aaron Brown for King 5 News.